name is Brianna, and I thought that a video would be the best mode for me to communicate what I found the most valuable and most impactful during this course. So in reviewing all of the modules, didn't realize how many concepts we had covered, and I found it actually quite hard to narrow down to 5. But to get started, the first one that I thought was really important or impactful, or that I learned the most from, was the ecological systems perspective and that theory. I know that we focus on it a lot in social work, but I think we often look at it from like a micro perspective. So viewing it from a macro perspective was important for me to learn that all systems impact one another, obviously, like that's by definition, but to understand it from a macro perspective and to learn how to apply it was, I think, important and beneficial, and not something that I think I had considered. So I think that was probably one of the key concepts that I took away. Another one would be ethics and the role of a social worker. I think that after reviewing I might get this wrong, but the Human Declaration, or the United States Declaration for Human Rights, or I can never get that phrase right, but those standards that we set out, that all humans deserve certain rights and responsibilities and things like that, I think is really important to take a look at, especially if you're interested in global social work and international, whatnot. But I think that we often, being that we're in the U.S., view rights very differently than other countries. So I think it was a good look at what it means to be a social worker in another country, and what does it mean that we're not just a social worker in the United States, but we are a social worker for all humans and all vulnerable and oppressed populations. So I think that going over those different rights and understanding how they apply to me as a social worker was really impactful. I think the third one was organizational climate. I don't think that I had really considered how organizations function and how it impacts culture and climate, and what it means for those that are working in the organization, and how that impacts groups and meeting goals and being successful and things like that. So I think that was a beneficial one to examine. I'm not sure that I know that organizations are involved in social work. Obviously, that's the gist of what functions in social work, but I don't think that I had truly realized how to examine it or how to critically think about organizational climate and what it means to me. So that was a good one. The next one would be families. I think that I'm really interested in child welfare social work. So for me, exploring the different dynamics of a family and what it means when there are strained relationships, and even like doing the genogram assignment was really helpful and really good for me to know different perspectives and what it means to come from a different type of family and not have the traditional one that some people come from. So I think that the family concepts and those theories and things like that were really helpful and beneficial to me as well. And then lastly, I think styles of leadership was really important. I think that we often overlook leadership in social work. So I think that, it goes without saying that like democratic leadership is the most important and the way that aligns best with social work values. But I don't think we often spend enough time developing social workers to be leaders. But so much of what social work is and the different concepts and the core values translate to certain types of leadership. So I think that it was really beneficial and really good to explore and examine what it means to be a leader and a social worker, and what type of leader we are and how that impacts the type of social worker that we are as well. So those were probably my 5 key concepts that I think I walked away with that will stay with me and that were the most impactful. To address the change in perspectives or a different view on this course, I think for me, the one that impacted me the most is really probably the importance of macro practice. I think on a broad scale, I understand that policy is important, right? But I think that when I think of macro practice, that's all I think about is policy. I always say that I'm much more of a micro person because I'm better with people and I'm better one-on-one, and I can work well with small groups, but I'm not sure that I really comprehended that macro practice involved more of just policy and advocacy, and what it really meant to take a macro perspective at different things like systems and styles of leadership, and how that all kind of was just like intertangled with one another. So for me, I think that the view of macro practice itself was the most impactful, because I'm not sure that I really quite looked at macro from another angle other than viewing it as like the larger system that impacted micro practice. So for me, I think an overall change of macro practice was the most important. And then the course assignment that I think that was most beneficial was our in-service assignment. I know that we had time to work on it, and I was really kind of sweating how big of an assignment it was. But I think it was really helpful to listen to a podcast on something that I'm not sure I would have necessarily on my own time chosen to listen to that particular podcast. And that's not necessarily something that I probably would have spent my time researching. But it was helpful, and I think to have to do I thought at first when we had to do a presentation that it wouldn't be that bad, but having to write out exactly what I would say really helped me stop and think about how I present as a student and how I present as a presenter. So for me, I think that assignment was the one that I benefited the most from. I learned something about a topic I wouldn't necessarily have been drawn to, and then I also thought about how I present as a presenter. So for me, that was probably the most beneficial. Thank you for watching my video. I have had a great time in this course and had a great time chatting back and forth on discussion boards and things like that with all of my classmates and with our professors. So thank you all for making this course worthwhile and teaching me something along the way. Thank you.